Well, may I wish everyone a very good afternoon, all of you joining us here live on this October 5th, 2020, and welcome to the Township of Douro-Dummer's live council meeting on YouTube, and a welcome also to those who are watching the recording. Just a reminder to members of council, we will conduct this meeting the way we would normally conduct a meeting in person. When we do call for the vote, I will ask all in favor, please give a very obvious wave. And I will also ask, is there anyone opposed? So that's how we will indeed do the voting procedure. I'd like to call the roll now to make sure members of council indeed are in attendance. First of all, just give us a big wave. Deputy Mayor Moher is here. Thank you, Carl. Councillor Watt.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Landsman.
Here.
And Councillor Watson. Good, thank you. Also joining us, our staff, our temporary CAO, Martina Jade Hartwig is here. Martina, a little wave, thank you. Brian Fawcett, our chief building official. Brian will be along at some point. Our fire chief, Chuck Pedersen, is here. Manager of Public Works, Jake Condon. Our assistant manager of recreation facilities, Mike Mood. I see you, Mike. Give us a little wave if you like. Okay. And senior administrative assistant, Vanessa Sweeting, and administrative assistant, Nicole Zenner. So members of council are here. I will officially call the meeting to order. And before we do so, we respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mishi-Sagig Anishibeg, and we offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. If we would all join us for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you all very much. Okay, we will get along with our meeting. We do have a number of items on our agenda tonight, and we will try to be as efficient as we can, and they include a couple of public meetings, and we certainly welcome the comments of some of the guests who have joined us. Adoption of the agenda for today's meeting would be appreciated right now. Mr. Moher and Councillor Landsman, all in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. The minutes from two special meetings, a special and a regular, from the 14th and 15th of September. A motion to adopt those minutes as well, please. Councillor Watt, and seconded by Councillor Landsman. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Any business arising out of those previous minutes?
Mr. Mayor, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
After we finish this, we do need to go back and do our pecuniary interest as well.
Sorry, we did neglect that. Sorry. Any pecuniary interest with anyone? Anyone at all? Seeing no hands? Okay, moving forward. No business arising out of the previous minutes. Let me see here. Now, we have a couple of public meetings to deal with, and that's why some of our guests are here, of course, and we'll try our best to handle these. This is a little bit different for us because of being in Zoom. When we're live in the council chambers, obviously, we can see you and let you speak and ask you questions. So it's just a little bit different. Just bear with us, and I'm sure we'll all get through this together. Okay, our first public meeting is a proposed zoning bylaw amendment, application R0420. I would like a motion to open the public meeting, first of all, please. Carl and Tom, all in favor? All opposed? The meeting is now officially open. Okay, Martina, I will turn it over to you to give us the background on this application, and then we will hear from the applicants or anyone else who might like to speak to it. So go ahead, Martina.
Very good. So this first public meeting is for zoning bylaw amendment R0420. The property is located at Plan 26, Lot 6, also known as 988 Birchcliff Drive. The roll number is 1522 010 001 03500. The notice of public meeting and complete application was given on the 9th day of September 2020 by first class prepaid mail and email as prescribed under the regulations of the Ontario Planning Act. The purpose of this application is to remove the existing cottage along with a shed and detached deck and erect a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. The land in question is currently zoned as limited service residential zone. The zoning bylaw amendment application is to rezone the property to a special district zone to reduce the water yard, side yard setbacks, as well as increase the lot coverage to permit the construction of a detached dwelling, and to reduce the front yard setback to permit a septic system as shown on the site plan submitted with the application. I will note that the water yard setback is past the 100-foot minimum setback as required by our official plan. In support of the application, the following studies were submitted. A planning report prepared by Ron Davidson dated January 22nd, 2020. A slope review prepared by Terra Spec Engineering dated December 16th, 2019. And a stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment prepared by York North Archaeological Services, Inc., prepared December 5th, 2019. We have received numerous comments on this application, so I will present them to you as follows. Scott Bonner, September 17th, 2020. Martina, on review of the site plan, I had a couple of questions and comments. I did notice on the document that no modification of the swale can occur without written consent from the adjacent property owner. One concern we did have with the new building, as a newer, larger building will naturally push water to the exterior of the property. Whether the property owner is responsible for the direction and control of runoff within the property boundaries. What are the municipal regulations with respect to a new well and its location to the lot line? And will we have access to the proposed building layout? And if so, when during the process will the placement of windows and mechanicals be determined if they are appropriate for the period of construction, to recommend a natural hedgerow barrier for the privacy of both landowners? Regards, Scott. Jeffrey Chalmers, September 18th, 2020. Hi, Martina. The MJ Davenport proposed site plan for 988 Birchcliff shows the well location close to the south lot line and the septic bed close to the north lot line. Where is the septic bed located on the property to the south in relation to the proposed well? And where is the well located on the property to the north in relation to the proposed septic bed? Clearances from wells to the septic bed apply also to those services on adjacent properties, and there is nothing indicating clearance compliance on the proposed site plan. Please ensure those requirements are met. Jeff. Murray Davenport, received on September 23rd, 2020. Martina, attached is a photograph of the drilled well located on the neighbor's property east of the subject property. The well measures approximately 70 feet to the common property line. The Ontario Building Code 2012 specifies a minimum of 50 feet separation between the drilled well and the closest septic leaching bed. The leaching bed proposed on the site plan accompanying the application exceeds the minimum separation required by the Ontario Building Code. There is no evidence of a septic system or well located on 984 Birchcliff Road, the property to the west of the subject property. The proposed location of the drilled well meets or exceeds the standards specified by the Ontario Building Code. Bedrock will be removed under the septic leaching bed so the leaching bed can be constructed on grade. Melissa Spencer, received September 18th, 2020. Thanks very much. This is very helpful, and I can see now that the proposed house is set back from the lake quite a bit from our cottage. Yes, you can indicate at the hearing that we have reviewed the site plan and understand the requested bylaw changes and are in support of the application. Please let me know if you would like a more formal letter. County of Peterborough. No comment or question on this bylaw. I am familiar with this proposal, and in reviewing the site plan attached as Schedule B to the bylaw, the proposed development will be set back 30 meters, 100 feet from the water yard setback. The proposal complies with the 30-meter setback provisions in the official plan. Enbridge does not object to the application. Orca did provide a letter. I'll read out the pertinent sections. Available mapping indicates that the subject property is not impacted by any known flood hazards. A slope stability study from Terra Spec Engineering Inc. dated December 2019 was submitted with the application. Autonomy Conservation staff have reviewed the study and site plan and found it to be satisfactory. Therefore, in the opinion of Autonomy Conservation staff, the application appears consistent with the provincial policy statement, section 3.1. Existing mapping indicates that the proposed development is located within 30 meters of a key hydrological feature. Typically, development in this location will require a natural heritage evaluation or a scoped environmental impact study. However, in lieu of an EIS, the applicant can submit a landscaping plan to show conformity with sections 4.2.4.5 C3 of the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. Given the above comment, Autonomy Conservation staff is in the opinion that the proposed development is consistent with PPS section 2.1.2. Further, the subject property is regulated under Ontario Regulation 16706, Autonomy's development, interference with wetlands, and alteration to shoreline and watercourse regulation. There is no construction proposed as part of this application. Permits for development, including construction and/or site alteration, will require a permit from this agency. The application was also reviewed in consideration from the Trent Source Protection Plan, which prepared under the 2006 Clean Water Act. It was determined that the subject property is not located within an area that is subject to the policies contained in the provincial policy statement. And those are all of the comments that we received.
Ooh, that was a lengthy one. I guess
you
don't want to repeat all those. Right
no,
now.
Thank you.
No. Okay, thank you for outlining that. Do any members of council want any questions of clarity before I move on to the applicant and anyone who would like to speak? Tom, you had your hand up. Go ahead. You're muted.
No, I'm good. Thank you very much. That was very informative.
Good. Okay. Seeing no other hands, here's the opportunity for the applicant to speak before council. Ron Davidson, is it?
Yes, it is.
Ron, you're the applicant?
Yes, I am, sir. Can you hear
Good.
me okay?
We can hear you. Go ahead and we'll
Super.
listen.
Thank you. And I shall keep this brief. So I'm the applicant. I'm the planning consultant that was working on this file. And I believe Murray Davenport, the engineer, is also on the line as well, should you have any questions for him. To keep this brief, the owners have owned this property for a few years now, and it's been their desire to build a new dwelling. If you've seen it, it's the existing one. It's certainly what we call a knockdown. And I think the new house will be, say the least, quite nice, and I'm sure it'll be good for the neighborhood. As Martina has gotten into, and therefore I won't, there's been a fair amount of information or background reports that were required to go along with this application. Just cutting right to the chase here, with regard to the side yard setback reduction from 6 meters to 3 meters, in my opinion, a 3 meter still provides a reasonable separation distance between the building and the lot line in terms of aesthetics and functionality. Should point out that if they decided to go with a detached garage, the detached garage could be located 1.5 meters from the lot line. But since they're going with a garage that is attached to the house, it's supposed to be back 6 meters, and the proposal here is for 3. So again, a detached garage could be located close to the lot line, but that's not what's being proposed. But I thought that was still important. Secondly,
hey, Ron, I don't want to interrupt you. We are hearing an echo from you. So it sounds to me like maybe something's turned up in your room.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I believe the issue is someone has their phone on, and that's what is duplicating the sound.
Could be.
So if everyone else could mute, that should solve the issue.
Yeah. Good.
My apologies. I won't go through. I will not go through that again. Just regarding the lot coverage from 15% to 17.8%, and that includes the deck. You're not going to notice that. That's not noticeable to the naked eye, a small increase like that. And then the last matter is with regard to the septic system. It's in the zoning bylaw that it has to be set back 15 meters from the front lot line. That's generally something you don't find in a zoning bylaw. And I'm guessing maybe when you update your zoning bylaw, you might remove it. You can't see a septic system. So whether or not it's 16 meters back from a lot line or 6.5 meters back, like we're proposing, I don't think that's a big deal. What is a big deal though, is the fact that it conforms with the Ontario Building Code. Thanks. That is it for my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Ron. I'm sorry we had to interrupt you there, but we did fix whatever problem was there. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in support of the application? Jeff, did I see your hand?
Thank you very much. I am in support of the application. However, I have two concerns that I will make this as brief as I can. And I live at 1000 Birchcliff Drive. And in the last 2 years, there have been a new house built and then amendments or changes to an existing house, both immediately to the south of me. And that has resulted in a huge drainage problem. All the water that previously had drained down towards the lake now comes down into my property from these other properties. And I have a serious flooding issue that I'm going to have addressed at significant cost to me. So that is one concern, is dealing with the drainage. It should go towards the lake, not towards the road. And the other issue is the road itself. And when there's construction done on Birchcliff Drive, heavy trucks result in pothole damage and so on. And I'm assuming that the person building the property will repair that damage at the end of the construction. Okay. Otherwise, I have no objections. Those are just my only concerns.
Reasonable concerns, and I thank you for that. Anyone else would like to speak in favor or in opposition? Anyone would like to speak in favor or opposition? This is your opportunity. Okay, seeing no hands, I'm going to ask for motion to close the public meeting. Councillor Landsman, seconded by Deputy Mayor Moher. All in favor? All opposed? Motion is approved. Okay, thank you, everyone. Now, if you'd like to move ahead, we usually like to go. Martina, what's your concept on that?
If you would like, Mr. Mayor, you could ask council to move the bylaw forward so that it could be dealt with as the applicants are still on the line. That would be bylaw 2020-55.
2020-55. Okay, any member of council willing to make that offer? Mr. Moher, go ahead.
I will move the approval of the bylaw.
And do we have a seconder to that motion? A seconder. Councillor Watt, is there any discussion on the motion? Go ahead, Carl.
A couple things. I believe that's a private road, and I'm not sure whether there's a road association or not, but the issues raised by Jeff probably should be discussed with the association to ensure that there is full respect for dust and heavy trucks and so on. The second point, one of the interveners mentioned about windows, placement of windows and so on. I think it was by Scott Bonner. There's no regulations in our township for that kind of oversight. So probably the best bet would be to have discussion with Ron or somebody to review building plans. I'm sure most people would respect the need for privacy on close proximity. And I'm sure that a balance could be worked out. But there's no regulations to regulate that kind of wish that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Carl. Is there anyone else? Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve bylaw, amend zoning bylaw 2020-55. Duly seconded, call for the vote. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. The normal 20-day appeal period, Ron, as you are probably aware, and then you can move on in the process. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you. Okay, a motion to go and have another public meeting. This is item 8.2. Would someone please open the meeting? Councillor Watson and Deputy Mayor Moher. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, that motion is approved. And this is a public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment application RO 620. And this is about 972 Dodworth Island. Martina, please give us the background.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a zoning bylaw amendment for file RO 620. The location of the subject lands, Lot 1 is Lot 15, Part Lot 16, Plan 6, 972 Dodsworth Island, Dummer Ward, roll number 1522-020-005-7200. Lot 2 is Lot 16, Plan 6, 976 Dodsworth Island, Dummer Ward, roll number 1522-020-005-71900, both in the township of Douro-Dummer. The properties are owned by Charlotte Clark and Richard Scullin and Matthew Francis Ronco. I believe some of those people are on the line with us today. Notice of the public meeting and complete application was given on the 9th day of September 2020 by first class prepaid mail and email as prescribed under the regulations of the Ontario Planning Act. The owners of lots 1 and 2 have applied to amend the existing zoning of the parcels of land in the former township of Dummer. The lands in question are currently zoned island residential zone. The purpose of this bylaw is to rezone lots 1 and 2 to special district zones, to recognize the existing structures on site, and to address the deficiencies in the various water yard setbacks. This application is being done in coordination with an application for consent, file B9118, currently being processed by the County of Peterborough. We have received comments. The County of Peterborough states that they have no comments or questions about this bylaw. Enbridge Gas does not object to the application, and Orca has provided a letter, and I'll read out the pertinent segments for you. Available mapping indicates the lots are traversed by the highest recorded water level elevation for Stony Lake, a proxy for floodplain. However, as there is no change in land use or further site alteration proposed, it is the opinion of Autonomy Conservation staff that the application remains in conformity with Section 3.1 of the Provincial Policy Statement. Provincial mapping indicates that the property is within 120 meters of a key hydrological feature, a provincially significant wetland, and Stony Lake. Typically, in order to conform to Section 4.2.4 of the Growth Plan, a natural heritage evaluation would be required in support of the application. However, as this rezoning is requested as part of a lot addition with no further site alteration proposed, and will recognize the existing structures and setbacks, this agency does not recommend any further natural heritage evaluations at this time. The entirety of both parcels are subject to Ontario Regulation 16706, Autonomy Conservation's development, interference with wetlands, and alteration to shorelines and watercourses regulation. A permit from this office is required prior to the placement of any fill, grade alterations, or construction activity taking place in the regulated area. The application was also reviewed in consideration for the Trent Source Protection Plan, which was prepared under the 2006 Clean Water Act. It was determined that the subject property is not located within an area that is subject to the policies contained in the in the Source Protection Plan. And those are all the comments we've received.
Okay, thank you, Martina. Members of council, any comments for clarity? Any questions of Martina on that report that she just read? Okay, seeing none. Now, could anyone here who is here over this application identify themselves for us so we know who's who? Okay, I see Nicole Truman, is it?
That's correct.
And a lady, I don't see a name there. Can you, no, you must be muted. We don't hear you. Yeah. There you go.
Charlotte Clark. Charlotte
Okay,
Clark,
good.
one of,
Thank you.
one of the landowners.
Isn't technology amazing? It never,
Certainly is.
this is ridiculous. How does this work? I know.
I know.
Okay, so it is the opportunity for the applicant to speak to council over this, and who would like to do that? Nicole, are you representing the applicant?
I am the agent for the applicant.
Okay, you go ahead, Nicole. Thank you.
So really, I just wanted to be here today to answer any questions. What we're trying to do is between kind of two neighbors that get along quite well, sever a small piece of property that the neighbor, the Roncos are using from Charlotte's property. And everyone is in agreement, and I've been to the property and it nicely lines up with some juniper bushes and some tree line where the property is. And so the piece that we're talking about that led to the rezoning is right beside the dock that the Roncos use. And so it will just help kind of clean up the property for the Roncos and for Charlotte as well. And then, like I said, the severance application has led to the need of the rezoning as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicole. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone else like to speak in favor? Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Okay, seeing no hands, there's nobody out in Neverland that I can't see. Just giving everyone the opportunity. Okay, members of council, any questions of the applicant? It is your turn. Carl, go ahead.
This application would appear to be clean up a number of things with both lots. So I'm quite supportive of it.
Yep, there's some common sense here, which is nice to see. Okay, I'm not seeing any requests for any more comments. I thank everyone for joining us for this application. I'll take a motion to close the public meeting, please. Councillor Watt, Councillor Landsman, all in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. So we're back in open session now. And Nicole, I'm sure, unless you'd rather wait till midnight tonight, we could probably deal with the bylaw right now. So I think we'll do that. Bylaw number
That would be great.
2020-56. Good. Is there any member of council wishing to make that motion, please? Go ahead, Tom. You're muted, Tom.
Sorry about that. Yes, I will make a motion that we approve bylaw 2020-56 to amend the zoning bylaw for this file.
And a seconder. A seconder to that motion on the floor, please. Councillor Landsman. Call for the vote. All in favor? All opposed? Motion is approved. And Nicole and Charlotte, that application is approved. 20-day appeal period, like there is with everything. And you can get on with things, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
very much.
Thank you. Okay, our meeting now continues with other business and staff reports. Our fire chief, Chuck, are you with us?
I am.
Ah, there he is. Good to see you, Chuck. This is item 9.1, and this is the tender results for the tanker. So Chuck, go ahead.
So yeah, in our 2020 budget, we had one of our items was the replacement of the Donwood tandem tanker. So we wanted to match that closely with the one that we put in Warsaw in fall of 2017. So we basically duplicated that truck, sent it out. We returned, it closed here a little while ago. And so going through the process and all the scoring in the 4 sections, we came up with a number that's in the report with Carl Thibault just slightly ahead of Fort Garry. The previous tanker was a Fort Garry truck, but again, same spec. So following the process of the tender would award the tender to Carl Thibault. So that is the recommendation, but we have one hiccup, and that was our budget figure was off. We had notes in December of moving the figure to 340,000, but somehow that did not get put into the public budget. So we are a shortfall of just over $68,000. So it was not a surprise. Our number was thought to be 340 because the same tanker in 2017 cost us 285,000, and prices have only increased since 2017. But it wasn't, somehow we missed that in the budget presentation. Not sure if it was because our other mini pumper was 275 and it got kind of blurred together there. But anyway, the recommendation is to purchase that vehicle from Carl Thibault, and that we would have to take an additional $68,346 from reserves and not delay the purchase. It would not be ready for a year, so this would be going into the 2021 budget. And we have circulated that budget discrepancy to the treasurer and the CAO.
And that is a fairly good chunk difference, Chuck, isn't it?
It is.
Yes. Okay, that's the report. You see the recommendation. Comments on that report, please. Any members of council have anything to say about that? Go ahead, Heather.
Thank you, Your Worship. Chief, just to be clear, so the shortfall you're suggesting would carry forward through, effectively, we've already got the 275 set aside and earmarked, but then that 68,346 would be carried forward into the 2021 budget. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, basically be a new budget amount that would be rolled over into the 2021 budget. It would have been addressed. It was discussed. We do have notes in it, but unfortunately just didn't get into the presentation. And somehow we overlooked that when it was presented. So yeah, the money is kind of in the bank, if you will. It would have been adjusted, and it wasn't in the presentation for the public and council. So that, again, we do apologize for that. But yes, the short answer is yes, it would be rolled over. We just need the intent to do it so that we can award the contract, but it would be a 2021 purchase.
And just to follow up to that, when you say a 2021 purchase, is the deposit required, and when do we hope to take possession of that truck, or when are they promising to deliver?
There is no deposit. We put in our process that we don't pay until it's after it's picked up, because of companies that have gone out of business and shut doors and locked doors, and then you have a partially paid apparatus that you can't access. And so we go through the process to avoid those things. So I don't have the date here right in front of me, but it would be fall of 2021.
Great, thank you.
Just over a year.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Go ahead, Carl.
I move the recommendation.
Okay, that is moved by Deputy Mayor Moher. Do we have a seconder to that motion on the floor? Councillor Watt. Is there any other discussion from any other member of council on this issue? Call for the vote. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved, so the truck can be on its way. And Chuck, I just want to say thank you for your new tanker. Carl, go ahead.
I believe that Mr. Ronco may have just joined the line. He may not be aware that we've already dealt with the rezoning.
Okay, Vanessa.
I did. Thank you, Carl. Apologies. I got tied up in a business matter.
Okay.
May I ask if it's been approved or not?
Yes, it has.
Okay, great.
Yes, it has
Thank
been.
you so much.
Thank you. Now, Vanessa, I'm assuming Vanessa is monitoring these types of things with people coming on.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, she is, and we let Mr. Ronco into the meeting so that it had full disclosure for the public and for him as to the matter already being dealt with.
Okay, thank you. Moving to 9.2, and this is a second entrance at 544 fifth line of Dummer. Jake, do you want to kick that one off?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Request was received from Mr. Behringer for a second entrance on the fifth line of South Dummer. He is requesting this entrance in order to access a newly constructed garage. As per the entrance permit policy, a second entrance must be approved by council. I met with Mr. Behringer on site to review the proposed location. It is my observation that there are no issues with sight lines and the entrance would not impact any traffic on the fifth line of South Dummer. My recommendation is that the Public Works report dated September 20th, 2020 regarding the second entrance on the fifth line of South Dummer be received and Mr. Behringer's request be approved. There is no financial impact to the township as all costs are paid by the applicant.
Thank you, Jake. Very thorough and very above board. Are there any questions on that report? Carl?
Yes, Mr. Condon, is there a culvert involved?
Yes, there is a culvert involved.
And I guess my issue is they will be covering the cost of the culvert now, but quite often on these cases, 20 years down the road, when a culvert breaks down, its culvert is replaced on our hook rather than the repair. I wonder at some point or another, we should look at that policy to see if we should alter that policy for efficiency.
Jake, any comment?
You broke up a bit there on my end, Carl, but
oh, and now you're freezing up.
There is a culvert required. Sorry.
Yeah, we're having a series of technical signal issues here tonight. I think Jake, you're on and off, and Carl, you're on and off. Nothing personal.
Right. Well, I guess that has nothing to do with the resolution today, but perhaps the CAO could make a note for future to look at that policy. I'm concerned that 15, 20 years down the road, when the culvert needs to be replaced, whether we should be going back to the ratepayer to ask them for contribution.
Okay, good point. Jake, can you make note yourself? Martina?
I've taken a note of that.
Good. Okay. Okay, that motion is on the floor. Heather, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to perhaps add to Deputy Mayor Mohur's comment about reviewing that bylaw, that we also look at just notice to neighbors within that, so that there's a bit more communication to the neighborhood and its potential impacts, not this particular one, but in the future, so that we're looking at it in a more fulsome way.
Good idea. Thank you.
Good idea.
Okay, that motion, is there anyone else? It's on the floor. Sheila, did you have a comment on that issue? You're muted, Sheila.
Sorry. Has the motion been made to follow the recommendation?
Yes.
If not, I would.
Has it
that
not
motion.
made? I thought Carl made it.
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay,
So I will
Sheila-
make that motion.
Sheila, and a seconder then is Carl. Let's call for the vote. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, that motion is approved. Thank you for that, Jake. And don't go away. Joining us, and you can see his friendly face in the middle of the screen, is Ted McMillan. And for those of you who don't know Ted, he's certainly a long-time resident of Douro-Dummer. He was pretty well born on a piece of machinery, I think. And he has been good enough to assist our Public Works Department in navigating some of the issues involved in road maintenance and grading techniques and all kinds of great things. And Ted, I just want you to know how much we appreciate your experience in helping our guys. And it's just great that we can work together in this way. So this is a report that Ted has put together from his initial review of the situation. Now, Jake, do you want to say anything before I go to Ted? There's a very comprehensive report that he's presented to us, and I think it's a very fair set of comments. So Jake, and then I'll turn it to Ted, and he can explain it all to us.
Thank you. The report before you is in response to Council's resolution numbers 226-2020 and 191-2020 to retain the services of a consultant to mentor the public works. The consultant worked with the roads department from July 30th to August 7th, 2020 to provide mentorship on the construction and maintenance of gravel roads. Based on his observations, he has provided a report for council's information. The report outlines processes that, in his opinion, are working well, with areas for improvement and recommendations. The consultant's report has been included for council's review. My recommendation is that the Public Works 2020-21 report dated September
Okay,
24th, 2020 regarding consulting for information. Mr. McMillan is in attendance to answer any questions council may have.
Okay, you pretty well, we missed some of the things you said there, Jake. Your signal, I guess, is bouncing around, but the bottom line is that council would receive it for information. So Ted, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you'll have to unmute yourself, and perhaps you can give us a review of that report that you put together. We'll have to get you unmuted though first, Ted. Do you see a button on your screen where it's a little microphone that you can push and it would say unmute, or you can hold the space bar down if you have a keyboard in front of you. If you hold it down, you'll be unmuted.
There you go.
There we go. We'll hear you now. Ted, go ahead.
Maybe you don't want to. I enjoyed it very, very much working with the men, and you have a good staff, and you've got a great road boss for you too, and the men are very willing to learn, and I enjoyed it immensely. But my biggest thing is when I left there 45 years ago, we had 13 staff in the 2 townships, and here you're going with 6. You know, you're really short of staff. You've got 10 or 11 pieces of equipment. You got 6 men to operate double the equipment. So I really like to see us get some more good operators, and the men you have are excellent men to work with, and they're all very willing to learn, and they do a great job. And so as far as the greater operators, you know, they do a good job, but they just, I think, a bit more time with them. I'd like to spend a bit of time with them in this fall or even next spring when the weather's right to grade, and try to spend a bit more time with the lads. And there's so much thing they were never learned to do any ditching, and we only spent 5 hours and we done 3 little jobs, and they were quite amazed what could be done. And there's so much more that could be done with the graders, but again, you're limited to your time because you've only got so many men. And again, the brushing of the roads, there should be a machine going all the time at that brushing department. And as far as the gravel too, I noticed this year you crushed your gravel 3/4 gravel, and it should all be crushed 5/8 for compaction. And the 2-inch gravel should all be crushed 1.5 inches instead of 2 inch, because it'll compact like 5/8 gravel compared to 3/4. So you'd get a lot better job. And the biggest thing too is in the spring of the year is compaction of your shoulders. The graders, they just compact where the grader goes. The packer's on the back of the grader, and the graders can't get out that 4 feet out onto the shoulders in the spring because they're too heavy of a machine. I'd like to see us look at some kind of a rubber tire packer that you could drive down the middle of the road, but it would compact the shoulders. That's the biggest thing in the spring of the year. is get your compaction on your shoulders. And of course, grade light and grade slow and grade often. And I was really impressed with the fellas after, 2 or 3 days with them, and they're good men to work with, and they're very willing to learn. They're very willing to learn, and they're very, you're very fortunate to have such good operators. And they'd mentioned about next year or the year after that might be getting a new grader. I'd like to see us get a snowplow harness on that grader and eliminate the contractors altogether. And you could do all of that, and then that would sure help pay the wages of some new men if you could eliminate that contract. And also the new grader in the wintertime, you could put ice blades on in the winter, and we used to do it all the time, is run up and down the roads with the ice blades on and eliminate some of the sand. And you still got to do a bit of sanding on high hills and intersection, but as far as on straight stretches, them ice blades work immensely great in the wintertime. So, again, keep your grader operators going all the time. And there's so many things, I guess. I had a big concern about all the time that is spent on this wood furnace up there, and I know that sometime down the road you're talking about building a new shop, and that the men, you're every time you do a job like cutting wood, that eliminates the operators to doing their job out on the road. So there's that problem to look at too. And I'm going to be moving into the city here. Matter of fact, that's where I am tonight. But my neighbor, he's a very nice gentleman, and he works for the Ontario Hydro. And I spoke to him, and he said that if I wanted to get Jake and we could go and talk to him about maybe the Ontario Hydro, do a bit of brushing for them under their hydro lines, maybe they'd consider taking some danger trees down first and trade. So there's that possibility too. So there's quite a few things that I think would help the roads, and I'm willing to go and help the lads a bit more if you want me to.
Well, Ted, that's exactly the information that we were hoping to get when we asked you to give us a hand, and I think you've come through in spades a number of common sense ideas, and this council is going to have to make some decisions. We've had a few rough years with our roads, as we all know, and complaints and all kinds of reasons. You can't pinpoint it to anything. But I'm afraid this council at some point is going to have to make some hard decisions, both on roads facilities and roads maintenance and quality of roads. So I think what you're doing is pointing out some very serious things that we do need to look at.
Sure.
Any questions? Ted would be happy to answer them. Carl, go ahead.
Just a couple of comments. Thank you very much, Ted. It was very much appreciated, your support and the feedback from the employees to council members and others has been very welcome from the employees, which is very positive. And I think moving forward, Mr. Mayor, when you're ready for the resolution, I'd like to add a little clause to the resolution to perhaps consider allowing our roads manager, Jake, to be able to call on Ted from time to time for further mentorship and experience, because it's been very positive in the past, and I'd like to see it continued because very well it was received, and certainly we're getting positive remarks on roads these days. So I think sure that maybe weather was a little bit better this year, but there's more than just weather that has caused that. So it's already showing benefits. So
yeah, I totally agree with that, Carl, and I hope Ted will consent to kind of hanging out with us and giving us that guidance. And some of these recommendations, sometimes it takes more than just listening and nodding your head. We've at some point in time got to make some moves to improve our roads. Carl, we'll go ahead then and make your motion if you like.
I would move that we receive the report as written in our report, and further that Jake be authorized to bring Ted back as required for further training and mentorship due to the benefits already received in the fall and in the spring.
That'd be great. And a seconder to that motion. Tom?
Yes, I would second that motion with a couple of comments. Ted, also, thank you very much. It's been a great with the help you've given. I know you and I went for a tour long before this concept came along, and the ideas you had then were bang on. And I know you've really come through with the guys to help, start getting us back on track. We really do appreciate that. There has been a lot of positive comments. So I hope to see you back. Some of these recommendations here, it's stuff that we don't think of as council, and this is what we need. We need the people with the expertise over the years to help us and guide us the right way as to what we need, how we need, and why we need. So again, thank you very much.
Yeah, that phrase, need the people, seems to hit home more than anything. You've got to have the men to do the job. It's pretty hard not to. Go ahead, Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. McMillan, thank you so much for your time. I'm glad you were able to join us on the Zoom call this evening. I do just have a quick question. I support the motion. Certainly it's valuable, even just the information that you've shared with us today. I wonder if when you're training the staff, if there's any documentation. I know some of this stuff is by feel and by experience, and you learn by doing, but I'm wondering if, just for future training of staff down the road, where we're capturing some of that knowledge to be able to train the operators in the future.
I think the main thing when you hire an operators or hiring men on the township from this time on, hire them with a bit of experience, number one, and number two, the operators that are there now, then they can learn the men that are coming on board too.
Right, and that's fair. And I guess a follow-up question to Mr. Condon, as you are going down and learning these new practices, are you creating even just a set of standard operating procedures on, particular roads or, the approach? Again, just so that information, doesn't leave with workforce. There's churn in the workforce. So we want to, I get having experienced operators, but, each road is slightly different. Each piece of equipment is slightly different. So are we working on creating any kind of standard operating procedures around our approach?
Pardon, I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the last little bit.
I think
the
that would
question
be
was actually for Jake more so than yourself.
That would be a Jake
actually,
response, I would think.
Sure.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, no, we have not. Heather, since the updated any operating procedures.
And of course, there are educational opportunities for all our roads guys as well, in a variety of ways. And this is another one with the School of TED. So that's great. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. A comment, I'll speak to the motion then. Sheila, go ahead. You're muted, Sheila.
Sorry, Mr. McMillan, that was a terrific report, and thank you, as others have said, for letting us know how enthusiastic the staff are. And the way that you're bringing the information to them is coming from your experience, and I think that's more valuable than anything that they could get, and that's very appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay, Ted, we have a motion on the floor, and you can tell that we're all very appreciative of your efforts with our guys, and I want to see it move forward. Any closing comment, Ted?
No, everything's fine, and I just want you to know that you have some good men there, and Jake, he'll do a wonderful job. I know he will. He's young, and he's like the rest of the men there. He's willing to learn, and he's very, he's just going to do you as a great job.
Great. Thank you very
Good
much
to
for
know.
that. And thank you, Jake. Okay, the motion's on the floor. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Thank you, Ted. You can go home now, and you've left the township, I guess, are you? But you won't be far away.
I
Yeah.
won't be very far away. That's right.
That's good. Okay, thank you very much.
You're more than welcome. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, we're moving ahead to item 9.4. Martina, this is risk management, the official education and outreach program about source water protection. Go ahead.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the township's part of the Trent Source Protection Plan. We spoke about it earlier when we reviewed the zoning bylaws, and that document came into effect on January 1st, 2015. The plan was developed under the Clean Water Act 2006. Municipalities which are part of the plan are beholden to the act to appoint a risk management official and develop an ongoing education and outreach programs for their affected landowners and the community at large. Since the 2015 outreach and education pieces have been completed, since 2015, the outreach and education pieces have been completed by ORCA staff under a contract with the municipality. The enforcement activities under this plan have also been contracted to ORCA staff. Our contracts for both types of services will be expiring at the end of this year, and ORCA staff have now combined the two services into one agreement for council's consideration. A copy of the agreement and an overview of the proposed activities and program and service fees are attached to this report. By continuing to have one risk management official who fulfills both the enforcement and education outreach activities for all municipal members in the Trent Source Protection Plan, the costs are minimized for each member and the service delivery is consistent across the plan. The agreement that is before council is for a 4-year term running from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2024. In order to meet our obligations under the Trent Source Protection Plan and the Clean Water Act, it's pertinent to enter into a shared service agreement with ORCA for the provision of these enforcement services under Part 4 of the Clean Water Act and the provision of outreach and education services under Policy G5 of the Trent Source Protection Plan. It's recommended that council receive this report, and further that the mayor and deputy clerk be authorized to execute the necessary agreements with ORCA to provide these services for the years 2021 and to 2024.
Okay, thank you, Martina. Right to the point. Let me hear from members of council. You've read the report. Nobody? Carl?
Move the recommendation.
Heather?
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Okay, is there anyone with any discussion on it at all? No? Okay, call for the vote then. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Thank you, Martina. Keep going now.
Okay.
You're on a roll.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I just want to suggest that council move up bylaw 2020-54. That's the bylaw to authorize this agreement so that it can be
Sure.
completed at this time as well.
Okay, no problem. Somebody want to move that bylaw and get it all done within this subject area? Sheila? Seconder? Heather? All in favor? All opposed? That motion and that bylaw is approved. That's 11.1 also out of the way. Okay, recruitment of the lead hand. Martina, you can go ahead with the concept here and we'll see what we can do. Go ahead.
Very good. So with the promotion of Jake Condon to Manager of Public Works, that's left the role of lead hand vacant. With winter approaching, it's essential that this role be filled to ensure that we have a full Public Works staff complement, as our seasonal staff will soon be departing. The lead hand role is second in command in the department and provides support to the manager in a variety of key tasks, along with providing direction and supervision to the Public Works staff. The process for finding a lead hand should start as soon as possible so we can find a suitable replacement that fits with our workforce. It's suggested that the recruitment committee for this position be made up of Jake Condon, Manager of Public Works, an appointed council member, and myself. This format will be similar to what was used for the recruitment process for the Manager of Public Works position. As with that process, council will be kept apprised of the progress that the recruitment committee is making, and a report with a preferred candidate will be brought back for council's approval. Further, staff have taken this opportunity to conduct some house cleaning to the lead hand job description. An updated copy is attached. This updated version better reflects the responsibilities of this position and provides more details on the skills that are essential for the success of the possible candidate. This housekeeping also modernized the language in the job description to bring it in line with the Manager of Public Works job description that was recently updated. The recommendation that's before you is that this report be received and approved, and that a council member is appointed to sit on the hiring committee.
Okay, thank you, Martina. Any questions on the report at all? Martina's done a good job of putting that all together. Carl, go ahead.
I've got a couple of suggestions for the job description.
Okay, go ahead.
One of the things I don't agree with is number 5 on the duties and responsibilities. Performs the duties of the equipment operator when required. I'd like to see when required removed, because I guess this job would really be as when required for lead hand work, not operating work, because this individual would be an operator when he or she weren't required for a lead hand. And the other point is on the last page, he requires a Class D driver's license with Z endorsement is crossed out. I would assume that if he or she are an operator, we would still need them as having a DZ license. Just those 2 points.
Can you clear that up?
Absolutely. So for number 5, we could amend the language slightly. Performs the duty of the equipment operator as necessary to support the department. Would that meet your requirements?
I'm not, like, he or she are still an operator, and I don't know why we want to lessen that responsibility. It's a working lead hand that we're looking for.
That is correct.
And I guess that's my position on it anyway, whether other members of council agree or disagree with me.
Well, that's going to have to be something we have a vote of council on. Carl, why don't you make a motion articulating those 2 changes?
Oh, could I, sorry, Mr. Mayor, before we do that, could I just go through the other question that Deputy Mayor Moher had as well?
Okay, go ahead.
So you're correct, Deputy Mayor Moher. It does say a Class D driver's license with Z endorsement. That has been crossed out. And then further down in the document, it says requires a valid Class A or D driver's license with air brake endorsement. So that's replacing that with the upgraded information.
So it's covered. Okay. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. With track changes, it's hard to catch all of that sometimes.
Okay.
Sure is. So Carl, if you've got a substantive change in that job description, then I would put a motion out and we'll see if council agree with you.
I would move the recommendation with the exclusion of when required for number 5, duties and responsibilities in the description.
Okay, but in that motion, we would also need council's representative on the committee. Would you rather have it in one motion, Martina?
Whatever is council's wish, but I would like someone to be appointed so we can move forward with this.
Yes, no, of course you do. Okay, so Carl has made that slight change. Who is willing to be on the selection committee? Someone who has an interest in that type of work, obviously. Am I seeing anyone willing to be on that selection committee?
Your Worship,
Councillor Watson?
I actually am going to suggest that Councillor Landsman sit on that committee. I believe that she would add a good lens to it. So I don't know if she wants to accept that, and it's not really a nomination process, but I just wanted to suggest it.
Well, it'll be part of the motion that Carl is making, hopefully. So Sheila, are you willing to sit on that committee?
Yes, I will sit on that committee. And I make a comment about the job description and Mr. Moher's change? Why does item 5 have to be in there to begin with?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we wanted that item number 5 in the job description and to be quite prominent in the job description as this is a working position. The lead hand, when not performing supervisory or report-based tasks, would occupy their time as an equipment operator. And so we wanted that to be highlighted in the job description.
We wanted to make that very clear so they're not sitting there at a desk all day, I guess.
So they would just be, it could be just performs the duties of equipment operator then. Is that what?
I
your
believe
motion
that's
was,
the
Carl?
change that Deputy Mayor Moher requested.
Okay, Carl, could I clearly hear your motion, adding Sheila be appointed as the council rep on the selection committee?
I would move the recommendation in our report with item number 5, excluding the words when required, and that Sheila be the council representative on the selection committee with thanks.
Good. Okay, with thanks. See how polite it can be. Heather's going to be the seconder to that motion.
I'm most certainly
okay
will,
with
but I
that?
do have questions of staff about the job description beyond the motion. I support the motion.
Okay, that'll be a separate, it's nothing to do with the motion, all right?
Questions about the job description?
Well, we're speaking to the motion that's on the floor now. Yeah. So if you have another motion later on, I guess you can do that. Carl has made a motion for that slight change and to appoint Sheila.
I understand. So I'm seconding it for, yes, I'm seconding it.
Now, do you want to speak to the motion?
No, I personally don't want to speak.
So let's call for the vote then. All in favor? All opposed? Okay. Go ahead, Heather, if you've got other comments to make about anything in that area.
Thank you. So my question would be around the job description as it relates to the service delivery review and the HR review that was presented to this council some weeks ago. I understand the position has been updated as it was, quite some time since it was updated last, but does it actually take into consideration some of the recommendations that were presented by our consultant?
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it does take into consideration some of the changes that were suggested by our consultant, and it does significantly change the job knowledge and skill set of the lead hand as it was previously presented, so that as we move forward with the suggestions and recommendations from the service delivery review, this lead hand position can move into those new tasks that were presented in the service delivery review. So it allows for that growth opportunity for this person and the department as a whole. But it doesn't, I do know what you're referring to, and that will be a transition throughout the whole department as we move forward.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on now. Item 9.6, and this is an item and an issue that I would expect council to make some kind of a decision on tonight. There are many people out there in township land, minor hockey land, who are anxious to see what on earth Douro-Dummer are doing about the arenas and ice during this COVID-19 pandemic that we're dealing with. Things are not as straightforward as perhaps some people think they might be. But council members have had the opportunity to read Martina's very detailed report now for a number of days. So I'm sure you're all going to be aware of this and be prepared to make a decision that is well researched and well documented with all the things that have been listed there. We have our assistant manager, Mike Mood, with us too. He can hopefully answer any questions that we may have. Again, some of these things behind the scenes are a little different than what we think they might be in some of the challenges. So before the night's over, I really do hope that we can give some answers to our minor hockey people. And at the same time, number one, provide safety to our residents and anyone who uses our facilities. That is our primary concern. And ultimately, members of council are indeed responsible for that. So you got to make a decision here tonight. I'm going to ask Martina to review her report. And for the benefit of those watching, that report is available, of course, on our website, and everything is available to you for you to see that council sees. So without further ado, Martina, let's get down and at it, and let's hear the details.
Very good. So I will review my report in detail because there is quite a lot here, and I just want to make sure it's all highlighted, and I don't want to miss any pertinent pieces. So as council may recall, the closure of the Douro and Warsaw community centers took place on March 18th, 2020. Since that time, the community centers have remained closed in order to comply with public health recommendations and continue to keep the community and staff members safe. On August 14th, 2020, the province released a document, Guidance for Facilities for Sport and Recreation Fitness Activities during COVID-19. Staff have been working through the document and making modifications to the facilities in the event that council decides to open them for public use. A report regarding the work that has been done towards the safe reopening was presented to council on September 14th. That report is attached as a reference document. Staff have been working with user groups and men's leagues to determine the number of hours requested. At this time, Douro Minor Hockey is requesting 30 hours per week, and 6 hours have been requested from local leagues. We have also had a request for 16 hours of time from outside groups. We've received 19 hours of cancellations. With the current provincial and public health regulations, we will not be able to support any tournament play, seniors drop-in skating, parent and taught programs, or public skating. We can also not use shower facilities. The break-even point for operating our community centers ranges from 35 to 45 hours a week. This can fluctuate based on the type of user groups and the time slots that they've requested. Staff have provided a brief list of action items and changes in our operations that will need to be carried out if council wishes to proceed with ice installation. Part-time staff will be required again this year for the winter season. A review of the return to play policies from user groups. Install additional hand sanitizing stations. The units are purchased, but they are on back order. Online training for staff regarding cleaning procedures in response to COVID-19. Staff to ensure that user groups enforce physical distancing, contact tracing, pre-screening upon entry, and maximum occupancy within the facility. Install various signage throughout the facility to guide patrons through the new floor plans to maintain physical distancing and avoid congestion areas. All persons must wear a face covering while inside the building. An additional 30 minutes will be required to sanitize the facility between each surface rental. Dressing rooms will be left open during rentals along with high traffic area doors to eliminate as many touch points as possible. There will be a maximum of 22 participants on the ice at one time. Any player under the age of 18 will be allowed one parent or guardian inside the facilities during the surface rental. The renter will be required to provide a list of all participants, including names and contact information for the purposes of contact tracing. There will be a self-screening notice at the entrance of the facilities. There will be no outside food or drink permitted and no operating of the canteen. The participants could bring water in, but not food and drink for spectators. We will need to purchase additional cleaning equipment to ensure efficiency during cleaning procedures. Some of these have been purchased already, including backpack spraying systems. Staff have developed a reopening plan that outlines 4 stages of use. If facilities were to be open, we would start at stage 2 of that plan. A copy of the plan is attached to this report, along with an agreement that would need to be signed by all renters while the pandemic is still occurring. Along with changes in demand for surface rentals at this time, staff are anticipating additional operating costs in order to meet the regulations and guidelines as set out by the province and the local health services. There will be an increase in staff resources to maintain the buildings to the new standards and the guidelines for disinfecting, cleaning, and the schedules between rentals and the cleaning schedules between rentals. Staff will be responsible for monitoring social distancing, contact tracing, and maximum occupancy within the facility. Staff will now be required to work in pairs, and that means in most cases, two staff will now be working during all surface rentals. Although there are many factors to consider, we anticipate an increase to part-time wages. This amount is unknown at this time. It must be noted that the township only has one certified arena operator. If council chooses to operate one or both facilities, we must have a minimum of 2 operators. A recruitment process will need to be held to find staff to fill these positions. Without trained operators and trained staff, it would be unsafe and a huge liability to the township to install ice and to allow the public to use the facilities. Further, because of COVID-19, we did not conduct our usual hiring of seasonal staff. While we have returning staff members who will be joining us for the winter season, we will need to recruit additional staff. As noted above, we will need to have 2 staff working every shift to ensure that all public health directives are complied with along with normal duties. As well as thinking about staffing, council will need to provide direction on whether they would like to open one or both facilities. Both the Douro and Warsaw Community Centers have seen capital projects throughout the summer and are currently receiving new paint and flooring. The past cost to open each facility is as follows. For the Warsaw Community Center, the operating costs are $7,500 per month and approximately $250 a day. And for the Douro Community Center, they're approximately $11,666 per month and $388 per day. Further, the cost to install ice at each of the centers is as follows. For ice paint and staffing, it's $8,500 at the Warsaw Community Center and $9,500 at the Douro Community Center. It should be noted that these costs are based on 2019 and the Douro Community Center has undergone a series of efficiency upgrades that would reduce the startup and operating costs. As well as thinking of the cost to install ice, council should consider the costs if we need to remove the ice because of a possible provincial shutdown. Such as the one we saw in the spring of 2020. The shutdown costs for Simcoe and staffing are $2,600 at the Warsaw Community Center and $3,200 at the Douro Community Center. If council decides to proceed with ice installation, the scheduling of surface rentals and staff will be adjusted as needed and performance would be continuously monitored to ensure the department is operating as effectively as possible while we work through these challenging times. It's also important for council to understand, though there would be an increase in the operating budget to deliver these services. It's also important for council to understand that there would be an increase in the operating budget to deliver these services, especially if both community centers were to be opened. To assist council in making a decision, the following options are possible. Option 1, proceed with ice installation schedule. Start the refrigeration plant on October 8th with a tentative first rental and opening date of October 16th. This option is dependent on all of the factors lining up perfectly and that there are no changes to the COVID-19 pandemic. Option 2, delay ice installation and tentative schedule for the refrigeration plant to start up on the first day of either November, December, or January. It's important for council to know the ice installation process can take between 8 to 10 days, depending on the weather. Option 3, delay ice installation until further notice, continue to monitor the COVID-19 stage 3 pandemic, and continue to wait for the province to release further information. All of these options are dependent on having adequate staffing in place so the township can meet all of its obligations under the Occupational Health and Safety Act and the regulations from the TSSA. The operating expenses, including additional staff and the acquisition of the required cleaning supplies, equipment, as well as new signage, decals, and traffic flow equipment that are a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic, are all eligible for funding under the provincial Safe Restart Agreement. That is the $221,600 that the province has provided the township. This money is also needed to cover costs already incurred by the township as presented in previous reports, and that the township will continue to occur as the pandemic continues. To be able to safely reopen one or more of the community centers for the installation of ice by our user groups will require adequate staffing, time, and money. Council will need to weigh all of these factors along with the dangers and impact of COVID-19 to the community and staff. Direction from council is required for staff to take appropriate steps. The recommendation that is before you is that the report be received and direction be provided to staff. As the mayor said, Mike Mood is also on the line so he can answer any operational questions that council may have.
Okay, thank you. The facts are on the table. And of course, as I said before, safety and health concerns are our primary top of our list. Before I get members of council, because they're very familiar with this report and they can have their views on this, I'm going to ask Mr. Mood. what do you think, Mike, is the practical way to go about this dilemma that we're in?
Can you hear me?
Yep, barely.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think with Martina's report there, I think the best option at this moment is to focus on one facility for reopening. I do know that with the limited staff that we do have now, it'd be a lot better for us in the short term to just get one up and running and review the incoming rentals that may be coming in to see if it warrants for a second facility. I believe that we could do one for sure, and I do know minor hockey is adamant that they would like to get going here as soon as they can. So after having some conversations with them, they have a bunch of safety protocols that they had to adhere to with OMHA. So they have done so, and OMHA has approved that. So I'm comfortable with the hours that they are requesting that we can facilitate their needs. But right now, our biggest thing is their staffing. And to comment on the extra costs of staffing, I do know that when we did the operational budget last year, we did budget for more part-time staff prior to even knowing all this, to have a second staff member on shift with our operators. What the difference is, I don't know at this time, but I do know that we did actually budget additional staffing time, so that will help in the end goal.
So, Mike, you're suggesting middle of October, November 1st date is practical?
Well, I mentioned to Martina, so I need 8 to 10 days to do the ice. But in the short term, I only have currently myself and 2 other staff members that could facilitate the facility when it's actually open. So we do need to work hard and quickly on that. I have actually talked to some neighboring townships to see if they had some part-time people that may be available in the short term that already have experience and all that stuff. So we are working on that. The making of the ice isn't the issue at this time. Like I say, it's 8 to 10 days, and I can do that with myself or without anybody else. So it's just once we get open and needing the 2 staff members on each shift, that's where it poses our issue. So I don't see, if we work hard now, I could see us having it probably ready for the end of October, maybe the 3rd week in October, and maybe even have some staff in place to take care of our rentals.
That's what we need to hear. And my last question, just to be clear before I open up to anyone else, our good people from minor hockey who do a heck of a good job. They've come up with all kinds of safety protocols and other outside groups who will be running the facilities. How confident are you that these rules will be adhered to and that things won't be abused and put us in a position to have to shut down again?
Well, I'm very confident that everybody knows the seriousness of the pandemic. So I think everybody's going to be cautious regardless. And it's just going to be a matter of making sure the staff that we do have in place, that they follow the guidelines that we have in place. So I believe that things will run pretty smoothly. It's going to take some time in the beginning to get everybody into the routine, but I think everybody's on the same page that they know there's an issue with what's going on with the pandemic, and that they'll be respectful of all the changes that have gone on. So I feel that we can make it work. There may be some learning curves, but all in all, I think it'll go well.
Okay, that's what we want to hear.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'll just say that Douro Minor Hockey, they do have a letter at item 12.4, and it did include their safety plan. So we
Great.
are well acquainted with the safety plan that Douro Minor Hockey has in place, and it's already been approved by OMHA. As for the men's leagues and the other leagues, they're not beholden to the same types of requirements by their associations that Douro Minor Hockey is. So we may have extra work to be done there with those types of rentals. So I just want to point that out there, that there is a difference between the minor hockey type rentals and men's leagues or other types of user groups.
But they have to abide by the rules. Okay, it's going to be open to council here. Sheila and then Heather. Go ahead, Sheila.
Yes, thank you. I'm just noticing that Martina's report is dated October 1. There was an announcement by Dr. Davila on October 2nd to do with really limiting sports that are where they come in contact with each other. And I just wonder if we should get her final, find if she has made any further statements on that, because it would make me a little nervous to see the hockey taking place close together with
Is
close
that Dr.
proximity.
Davila, the Toronto medical officer?
Yes.
Yeah, well, her regulations are only for Toronto. So.
Well, yes, I realize that. She just did make a comment about her thoughts on close proximity in sports. And
okay, Heather, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Martina, for your report and the details that are in there. As far as I'm concerned, I think it's pretty obvious that we need to proceed with opening one of the facilities to start, recognizing that the situation is fluid with what's going on around us. I'm curious, I'd like to try and move forward with option one and hoping that we can get the staff resources lined up accordingly. My question is, can we actually get the ice moving forward? I understand there were capital improvements that were taking place in both of those facilities. Is that work complete so that staff can get in and do that ice prep and get things going? And is the company that puts the lines on the ice, the painting, are they available to us in such a tight timeline?
Mike?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The painting is complete in Warsaw. The rubber flooring is not, but the painting is 90% complete at Douro, and the flooring is well over halfway complete in Douro as well. So they figured both companies will be finished this week in Douro. The only other part is Warsaw, but most of that rubber flooring in Warsaw is just the lobby and dressing rooms, so that won't interfere with the making of the ice. So regardless, most of all the work is basically done in the actual ice surface area, and it would be done by the time we actually called Simcoe to start. I did speak with the ice painting company, Eastern Rink Services, who we've used over the years, and he said if I give him a day's notice, he'll make sure it happens. So he's very good to deal with, so we'll go with that. He said if he couldn't make it himself, he would have the guys down here, so there's no worries on that end.
Good.
And just a follow-up to that, council had also received a report and approved to go forward with updating the washroom facilities in both arenas so that we were using touch-free sinks and dryers and what have you. Was that work even scheduled to begin in advance of the opening, or are we looking at pushing that out? I don't think I've ever seen an RFP on it or anything.
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, that work hasn't been tendered out. It's something that we need to continue to work towards, so it hasn't happened yet.
There's been many things to deal with, unfortunately.
Nope, that's fair. Thank you.
Who else is in a line to say something? Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, thank you very much for that report. There's a lot of things to consider, that's for darn sure. The hours, for my first question, the hours of rental that we've been requested, minor hockey had somewhere between 30 and 40, 6 hours for local men's league, and then possibly another 16 for outside rentals. When we take into the consideration the half hour in between these rentals to do our proper cleaning stuff like that, do we have enough hours of usable timeline that we can do that half hour in between and just open one arena? That's my first question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So it's 30 hours for minor hockey and 6 leagues from local leagues. So it's about 36 hours a week, and most of that is prime time. We will need to sit down and very carefully consider our schedules and those 30-minute blocks that we need for cleaning. It may be challenging to provide all of those times, but if people are a bit more flexible and willing to extend before and after prime time, then we would be able to fit them in. I will say that the hours that I've reflected in my reports, they were based from early last week, and they may have changed to today. So just as a caveat.
Okay, no, that's good. Thank you. Because I just want to be, I mean, I want to make sure that we can cover the hours to open one arena, which I think we can. We may not be able to do all the external, like the 16 hours. If we can, we can. It's great. If we can't, we can't. My second thing, and it's been a bugaboo of mine right from the start, reading reports from police departments and everything else, is transporting kids to the arena and, you know, with equipment on and stuff. Like it's quite a bugaboo, and you know, car seats for up to 8 or 9 years old and certain weights, you don't even want to wear a winter coat in them. It's a no-no. So wearing hockey equipment in them is not an option. I think somehow, some way, we have to be able to, even if it's somehow in short shifts, like I think the minor hockey thing here says 8 players to be in a change room at a time. I think we've got to do something about using these change rooms. Like, you can't be in 20 below zero in the middle of the parking lot trying to put, you know, 5-year-old in hockey equipment that you couldn't put on them before you left. So we really, really have to look into that one somehow, how we get around that and actually open the dressing rooms for use, as far as I'm concerned.
If that's even under our control, that's an issue. Okay, before I go to Carl, another question. Are we entertaining having out of town rentals come to the arena? It's my understanding that some facilities are just using it for local teams and stopping that outside potential virus transmission from coming into town. I'm just asking the question. Are we wide open to rent it to anybody, or do we have restrictions? Martina or Mike?
Yep. Well, first of all, we do have a ice allocation policy that says that our local users are get first dibs, starting with minor hockey and then going on through the legacy leagues and men's leagues and other user groups. So we would want to fulfill any obligations to local teams and sports before we opened up to outside rentals. I am not 100% certain, so I don't want to speak to the rental to outside groups, but I believe there are regulations around that. So we would have to do a bit more research before we could commit to allowing outside groups to come in that are outside of our direct bubble.
Good, thank you. Carl, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Martina and Mike, for putting this report together. Very detailed, and it's excellent. Thanks very much for your time. I believe we should move forward with one community center. Just to answer Councillor Watt's question, stage 2 is recommended, and stage 2 does allow some use of the dressing rooms. So I think there's enough flexibility there that would allow for reasonable approach to it. And certainly the Douro Community Center, even though the costs are operating it as somewhat higher, there's more room with the harvest room nearby for young folks or older folks changing and so on, that should they need to be spread out more. So certainly that would be, and I think the approach that Martina mentioned about negotiating for prime, or if they won't fit into prime, then some of them will have to take non-prime. And that's the reality of this emergency we're in. And anyone that would give us a whole lot of flack on that, we've got to have a serious chat with them. But like, that's the reality here. I think we're making responsible decisions here to protect our our young people and our staff and moving forward. So I think
Sorry,
we're on the right approach here.
through you, Mr. Mayor. In stage 2, it is recommended that all minor participants arrive fully dressed. So the change rooms would be for adult players, not for minor league players.
How did I miss that in stage 2 spec here?
It's in the middle of the paragraph. I think it's
Okay.
it's the 4th point in that stage.
Okay, Carl, you're making a very good point about no doubt there will be some people not happy with whatever decision we make. And we're really sorry about that. If we could push a red button and make all this situation go away, we could, and we'd have both arenas going day and night, and all children to be happy. And we'd love to do that, but we can't do that. We're doing the very best we can do while keeping safety on the top burner. And that is what we have to do. And any deviation from safety policies that we will be putting in place will only hurt everyone if people think they can get away with doing something else. It's just going to ruin it for everyone, and we'll have to shut down everything we open. So people should be aware of that. Okay, we're going to have to make a decision here. I know members of council have been very familiar with this report for a long time, so I'm willing to get some kind of a compromise motion that's going to make everybody happy. Heather?
Your Worship, I'm prepared to make a motion. We can, is my audio on? We're good? I would like to move that we proceed with option 1 with the ice installation schedule, and that staff move forward with putting the ice in at Douro Arena only to begin with, as quickly as possible with staffing requirements or with staffing complements currently.
Are you given a date by a certain date, or are you just saying as soon as possible?
I believe I saw something about October 8th would be the soonest that staff could get in to begin that process. Did I see? So yeah.
Begin the process. Yeah, I can't see it.
To begin the process, obviously they're going to need to align staffing and Simcoe and the ICE people, like all of that, but get in and start doing it at Douro.
Okay. Well, that's maybe where Mike and Martina need to give us an idea. What's a practical time? It's fine for us to say something, but you got to do it.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. If option 1 is the one on the table, council just needs to be aware that to get to that October 16th date, everything needs to line up perfectly.
Yeah,
so we would need to have staff in place. So perhaps council would like to do option 1 with the reopening date to be as soon as feasible, so that we are not tied to a specific date if we can't get staffing in place for that October 16th. But I don't want to let people down, of course. But I also want to make sure that we have all of our staffing and our safety procedures in place, because I don't want us to be at risk for liability or other regulations that could hamper us. So
sounds very reasonable. Are you okay with that, Heather?
Yep, that's where I was going with as soon as possible.
Okay, Carl? Sorry.
I'll second the motion.
That motion is seconded. Is everyone on board with that motion? I want everyone to be in unanimity over this, so that it's very clear council as a whole made the decision, not one person. Sheila?
Yes, I'm on board with it. And I guess one question that I have is there are a couple of things, and I can't get the file open, but in the Douro minor hockey presentation that's further in the agenda, and that are not exactly the same as in this policy here, or in this report. And my second comment would be, we need to at some point go over the policy for ice and floor rentals, because that was just received at the last council meeting. It was never approved.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the allocation policy was received and approved, but Councillor Landsman is correct. It was the policy regarding cancellations and payments and things like that. That was the one that was received on the September 14th and hasn't come back to council yet. So,
Carl?
Just on Sheila's point there's a couple items that don't line up with our state or the different policies here in our township. So I'm sure staff can sort those out before we move forward.
Yeah,
I
that's what staff
think
do.
whichever policy had the more restrictive guideline is the policy we would go with when it comes to the reopening. So we're ensuring the safety of all participants.
Yep.
So we're counting on you and Mike to deal with that. Yeah. Okay. A motion's on the floor. Is everyone okay with that? Let's call for the vote then. All in favor? All opposed? That motion's approved. So I hope our good minor hockey people can be somewhat relieved that we are doing the best we can right now anyway. So thank you for that. We move to committees and other reports, an update on county council matters. Carl, anything to report?
Yeah, a couple of quick items. There's new tipping fees occurring at the Peterborough City and County landfill site on January 1, 2021. So I think we probably, in the near future, we should look at ours to make sure that we don't have people lining up to come to our landfill transfer for a bargain. So I'm sure if you see it, it's on tomorrow's agenda. So if you look at it there, and there's a couple on there that I'm going to raise at County Council. They want to charge for recycling. I'm not sure that's the right decision to be doing that, but we'll see what happens. Next point is we're asking tomorrow council as well to approve another $2.1 million for Gifford Causeway in 2021. That'll bring the total to 6.9 million on that causeway between 2019 to 2021. So a big project there and a lot of money, which we have got some federal and provincial, but a lot is on the taxpayer as well. Also, we're Jay Murray and myself are asked for any input we have relative to 2021 county budget. If you notice any issues out there that should be added to the budget that we might miss, send us a quick email or phone call or whatever, so that we can raise it. And the last point I want to make, this year is warden year, so the warden will be chosen early December. So more information to follow. I think that's it.
Okay, just a quickie. County staff who were certainly prepared to go back into the county offices, at least on a reduced basis. The latest COVID situation has forced them to kind of retract that a bit, and they're working from home whenever possible. So it's anybody's guess what we're up to here. We don't know, but we've all got to be very vigilant. Okay, could I have a motion, please, to receive that verbal report, please? Heather and Sheila, all in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Okay, our departmental reports, and this is something relatively new that we very much appreciate, and that is the reports from our various departments, our rec facilities, public works, administration, everyone. So these are very much appreciated, and they give us great detail. And those reports are also available to the public on the website, so we urge you to look at those. I would have one motion to accept and receive 10.2 and all those reports in it, please. Tom?
See them all, thank you.
And a motion to second it, please. Carl, all in favor? Motion is approved. Okay, we move ahead to something called Santa Claus Parade Notes. Tom and Sheila have submitted a report. We'll let them briefly go over it, and they have taken on the duty of having a virtual Santa Claus parade, and good work, a very detailed report, and we'll let you go right ahead and get the job done. So who wants to give us a bit of an outline on the way you're going to produce the parade? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sheila.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, hopefully you've all read the report. It's not a huge grandiose thing, but it would be something that I think would provide some enjoyment to people watching the beginning of a council meeting. And for those listening, there the date is December 1st, which is, I believe, the first December council meeting. And we would have a little bit of a slideshow for the beginning of the council meeting. And we'll be soliciting and have solicited some photographs from parades of the past, and hope to have a slideshow, and we'll see what we can put together and get as many photos as we can and make it interesting.
And presented at the December 1st council meeting.
Yes,
Okay,
that's the
good.
thought,
Thank
the
you for
plan.
being in the Christmas spirit. We'll look forward to the end result of this, and thank you both for working on it.
If I
Any
might just
questions?
add, if you do have any thoughts to contribute to it, they are welcomed. Thank you.
Okay, Tom?
And also, yes, it was an interesting conversation that Sheila and I had. I think there's probably a few other townships are kind of pushing, going the same direction that, but no, we've got some pretty good ideas in mind, stuff like that. And yes, getting some pictures together, stuff like that. But no, I'm really looking forward to finishing this off. And I maybe also suggest that for those that don't see this council meeting, and I know it's on YouTube, but maybe we'll be able to put a copy of it on our website, just this only, and when people can see it, at their own leisure, kind of like that.
Okay, that's good. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. A motion to receive that report and give Tom and Sheila the go-ahead to get all it done. Carl and Heather. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion is approved. Okay, we've done that. We've done all the bylaws throughout the
Sorry,
evening.
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes.
apologize to interrupt.
Yes.
Item 10.3 has been missed.
10.3.
County
sorry,
Official Plan Technical Advisory
Yes.
Committee.
And I would turn it over to you. Do you have any update? They are the minutes from the September 10th meeting.
Yeah,
They're going to receive them.
the minutes are before you. They are to be received.
Okay.
Brian Fawcett has been attending those meetings for us, and there's another one coming up this week, and they're going to be talking about consultation with First Nations and some wetland issues. So
Yeah, it's a very involved process too.
Mhm.
Very huge job. Carl?
There's one thing in that write-up, Martina, on the business arising from minutes and follow-up, the third bullet. It's a note from the Autonomy Conservation staff regarding the creation of a new lot defined as development under the provincial plans. I disagree with that. A member of our committee of planning who has retired from the Ministry of Natural Resources says those lines on paper in a wetland are not being interpreted correctly by Peterborough County and Autonomy Conservation. It was not the intention of the province to do it that way. And we've had, I think, Jay, you were on a committee or the severance here a short while back.
Yeah, land division, yep.
Both the Committee of Planning of Douro-Dummer and the County Land Division went against the planning staff. This is an item that's not considered development by many areas of the province, and it wasn't intended by the natural resources. So somehow or another, we got to get on the right page there, because to say no to something that's on a piece of paper on a deed is just, I think in my mind, is just nonsense. There's another issue as well regarding the official plan, and it talks, the second bullet there, the secondary bullet, Autonomy Conservation suggested adding wording to reflect when or if wetland compensation can be considered within a settlement area. And I guess my question is, why just settlement areas? Why would that exception not be permitted in urban or rural areas as well? So I just want to make sure we don't get down, like once some of these policies get in place, it's difficult to get them changed when you see the application coming to Committee of Planning or Committee of Adjustment. So a couple points there that I think we should have a strong opinion about.
Okay, anybody else with comments on that report?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I ask just Deputy Mayor Moher a question about his comments so I understand them properly?
Go ahead.
Sure.
So that second comment regarding compensation for wetlands. You would be in support of that in larger areas, or you are not in support of it at all? I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah, what they're doing in that layer, as I understand it, let's say you had a wetland in an urban area. And I guess what they're saying there is, we will basically approve it if you compensate it at another location within that settlement area. And that's not allowed in rural areas. I think we get into that. The start of it happened over in the city of Peterborough around Trent University a couple of years ago, when they were going to put in the community centers and the swimming. And I believe that was what they were talking about there, where there was a compensating, and there was an exception, but it was set up in such a way that they were going to replace it in another area. And I think that should also be, especially when you have a 100-acre farm or 200-acre farm. I don't know why the same provision couldn't apply. If you can replace that wetland in some other area within the lot, why couldn't it be the same as what's allowed in the urban areas?
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll get those looked into, because
Yeah.
I'm not sure off the top of my head. It may have something to do with provincial policy as well. So we can look into that.
And there will be lots of opportunities too at the county, Carl, to speak to those things.
Yeah, this
Good
is
comment.
a large ongoing project for sure.
Okay, that was so long ago, I forget what we did.
I don't believe anyone moved or seconded this,
Okay, to
this
receive
item.
those minutes.
I'll
Carl?
move to receive it with the comments made.
Good, Carl, and seconder, please. Heather? All in favor? All opposed? Good, that is approved. We move into action items now. Now, council have read these reports and these resolutions. First, from the town of Amherstburg. What is your favor here about accessibility for Ontarians? Go ahead, Heather.
Your worship, just speaking to 12.1 from the town of Amherstburg, not 12.2. I move to receive and support that resolution, just given the circumstances. Although accessibility and the requirements are very important, it's certainly something that I would hope the province would provide some leeway on to municipalities that need it.
Especially with the pandemic, it's a good motion. Okay, that motion to support, is there a seconder? Anybody?
I will second it.
Go ahead, Tom.
I will second that motion.
Did you want to comment on the resolution
Nope.
itself? No. Okay. All in favor? All opposed? That is approved. Another one from the town of Amherstburg about the Ontario government consider amendments to Bill 108, the Ontario Heritage Act. What is your favor there? Anybody? Carl?
I just wanted to ask Martina, if there are any issues there? I'm leaning towards receiving it only. I don't know enough about it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the resolution from the town of Amherstburg is specifically dealing with whether appeals under the Ontario Heritage Act should go to the local planning appeal board, or if they should go to a different tribunal. And the town of Amherstburg is recommending that they go to the Conservation Review Board instead. We don't have any properties that fall within this act, so I'm not very familiar with this legislation. I know that AMCTO is reviewing it as part of their legislative review practices, but I haven't heard any further information about it.
So receive, Carl. Move to receive. Seconder? Sheila? All in favor? All opposed? Motion is approved. Eastern Ontario's Warden's Caucus about funding for capital purchases with the money that we received from the province. This was very important to all of our counties in Eastern Ontario at our last meeting, and it more than deserves some support. We are all in this predicament. Tom?
Motion to receive and support.
Okay, a seconder to that, please, Heather. Good, thank you. And all in favor? All opposed? Motion is approved. And last but not least, Douro Minor Hockey, the return to hockey plan for the upcoming season. I believe we've addressed all that with our decisions we've made tonight. So if you want to receive it, Tom?
A motion to receive it and respond to that with our actions.
Seconder? Sheila? All in favor? All in favor? All opposed? Approved. Information items. We have 5 items here just in our correspondence. They are all available for anyone who would like to view. A motion to receive 13, please. All of them. Heather?
Your worship, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Seconder, Carl?
I got a couple questions.
Okay, pull one out if you like. Go ahead.
11.1, just for, this is basically to get rid of some red tape. So that
Yep.
should advance, that was brought forward at the county. And the other is a question, 13.4, the impact. The reassessment was to occur in 2020. Is there any news from Impact and whether they're going ahead with a reassessment for 2021? Or do we know yet?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I haven't seen anything directly related to that, but I'll keep council in the loop as they are doing quite a bit of work looking at 2020 information in different webinars. So I'll see what's available for 2021.
Thank you very much.
Okay, motion's on the floor to receive the correspondence. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Accounts to September 25th are in your package. Carl?
Move to receive and pay, and I got a comment on one.
Seconder, please. Sheila, go ahead, Carl.
I just want to note near the top of page 15, you'll notice that the Peterborough County Public Works recruitment for our public works cost $2,250. I thought that was a pretty reasonable amount for the professionalism that we received.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, did we, Carl move that motion? And the seconder, and we became a second.
Yep, Sheila was the seconder.
Okay. All in favor? All opposed? That is approved. Okay, we move to item 15, notices of motion. Deputy Mayor Moher has a notice of motion. Now, Martina, this is read for the first time, and then the next meeting we come and see if we got, is that how it's working?
So this notice of motion was read at a past meeting,
So
but it was deferred. So today we would need a seconder, and then it would come back to council for action at a following meeting.
Okay, Carl, do you want to read your notice of motion, please?
Sure. Policy regarding construction of low-level decks in Douro-Dummer, deferred from April the 21st. Whereas all construction activity at a residential property, whether completed by a resident or by a construction contractor, must be completed as per Ontario regulations and best practices to protect the health and welfare of the individuals using such items constructed. And further, that many municipalities like the City of London, Kitchener, Woodstock, Oshawa, Markham, the towns of Cobourg and Port Hope do not require a building permit for most low-level decks. Be it resolved that staff review Douro-Dummer policies to actively consider the waiving of current building permit requirement when a Douro-Dummer property owner is planning the construction of a low-level deck of 12 inches in height or less above earth grade, current earth grade.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, Martina, you say that we'll come back to the next meeting for a seconder or this meeting?
So we would need a seconder, and then it would be voted on at the next meeting.
At the next meeting. Okay.
And then that would also allow staff time to respond to the notice and bring
Right.
some additional information forward.
Okay, very good. We're clear. So that is Carl's notice of motion. Is anyone willing to second it so it can come back to the next meeting? Sheila, you are? Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion? We'll call for the vote. All in favor?
I don't think we want to vote.
No,
Do you,
well,
Sh-
no, we
Sheila?
don't. That's true.
No, we
It
don't
comes
need to
back.
vote on it. It just comes
Yeah.
back and then it will be voted on at the next
Yep,
one.
I
Yeah,
understand.
we don't have these too often, so I know it's always a bit of a process remembering exactly our procedure. So
Okay, that's good. It'll be back at the next meeting. Any community announcements anyone wants to make? Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion to go into closed session over personal matters about identifiable individuals and a request under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Heather. Seconder. Tom. All in favor? All opposed? Motion approved. Okay, we're going to take about a 3-minute break, and it will allow Vanessa time to stop the recording, and then we'll be back, and then we will return to open session again for those of you who are joining us. So in about 3 minutes, we'll return into our closed session and we'll be back.